I'm just going to cut to the chase. The end result of this part 2 video is a fully prepped and POR-15 rear deck and cargo floors on the VW bus. So stick around and see how I did it. Hi everybody, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of my VW restoration video where I'm restoring a 78 VW bus. In part 1 we kind of focused on, sandblasting and some metal work, and if you saw the video, you know that I had the undercarriage fully sandblasted using a mobile sandblasting service, but I wasn't able to afford to get the rest of the car done that way. So what I started working on is some rust and remediation on my own using some of these products here. These are Scotch-Brite little 2-inch pads for the right angle grinder, or a wire wheel on the grinder, the 4-inch grinder, or a polycarbonate wheel on the grinder as well. These work great to take off rust and paint very quickly, but they only really work in small areas and are very difficult to get into corners and various angles and things like that. And then finally some 60 grit or something like that for the polishing sander to kind of polish the metal and prep it. And then finally, obviously, acetone and then POR-15. Well, the problem with all these products is, again, it's just hard to get a large area done quickly with these, and it's hard to get into corners. So this area, or this part 2, will focus on using this guy right here, something I got from Facebook Marketplace. It is a 40-pound pressurized abrasive blaster, and so I think it's a central pneumatic, so it's Harbor Freight, but I bought it used, slightly used, and this isn't going to be a review of that product, but what it is going to be me showing you using the product. And I guess it is a review in and of itself, as if I come away with a smile on my face or with utter frustration, so we'll see, and that will be the review. But so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go inside and start sandblasting and prepping the metal for the inside. So let's get to it. Sandblasting works best with dry air. So I'm going to go ahead and bleed my system of water, starting at the compressor. If you need audio, I'll try to recreate it for you. Then at the regulator, there's some more. Yep, water's definitely coming out. My hands are wet. And then finally at the end hose, I'll shoot some more air out of it, and that should be good. Okay, now we're going to load the hopper here. I'm using that material that you see in the shot. Hopefully I get a close-up of it. That abrasive blasting material that I buy at Menards from a company, Tech Mix, and it's called Black Abrasive Blasting Crystals. It's actually a coal slag dust. And I like to stage it in a 5-gallon bucket that you see there so that I don't have open bags, it's clean and dry. And then I like to take a cheap funnel and I just cut the tip off of it to make it a little more open so it flows easier. I'll put that in the top there after I take the cap off, and I'll just start filling it up. Probably could use either a bigger funnel or a bigger scoop, so it's a little slow. Maybe get a bigger funnel. That'd probably make it quicker. Speaking of the blasting material, like I said, I buy that at Menards, $7.50 per 50-pound bag. I've used black oxide and other things, glass bead. This stuff works just as well, and it costs a fraction of the price. You can find it in Menards in the garden section, or where the mason sand and the sand, where they sell sand, basically. So yeah, I just fill it up and then I put the top back on, crank it down so that it can be pressurized. Oopsie, well, this little plastic bottom accidentally came out of there when I was trying to get the water, just to make sure there's no water in there. So the bottom came out, so I went to go repair it by taking this piece off. It threads in to here, but it was so bound up that when I took it apart, it just exploded. So now I got to go to the store and buy new, well, I think that's 3/8 inch inline dryer. I'll either go to Harbor Freight or Blaine's Farm and Fleet and pick one up. So oopsie, a little detour, but I'll put you in when I come back and have it all hooked up. Well, in lieu of doing an inline filter, I went to the store. Harbor Freight didn't have any, and Blaine's I think wanted $60 for an inline 3/8 inch filter. But what I'm going to do instead is I bought a whip hose, so I've got a reducer, and then this short 3-foot whip hose, and then an inline. They're basically throwaway inline filters, and I got a couple of these. They're disposable filters. So the reason I put it on a hose is so that when I actually, clip it together, it's flexible. So if I move it around, it won't. The plastic won't break. So that's why I didn't just mount it to here. And this will be a 10-minute swap out whenever I bought a couple extra, so 10-minute swap out. So I'm going to go with this arrangement right here. I didn't want to spend $60 on a new inline filter. I don't think that's just worth it. The other thing is I removed the valve. There's valves all over this thing, and they're probably the Achilles heel. But I still got the valve, the air valve here, and then the sand mixing valve at the bottom. I don't think I need an inlet valve really. So we're just going to go with this and see how it works. You do need a valve here. I should have thought about that. If you want to unplug your hose, but you don't want to depressurize your tank, you would want this valve here. So I went ahead and put it back in, and so just to have it. It is a working valve, I checked it. This one's a little sketchy, but it won't close all the way, but it opens up all the way. So I put that back in, but you do need to depressurize your tank before refilling it. I used it for quite a bit, and I think it's still got some material in there. It does clog up occasionally. I'd have to, give it a slap or whatever. And the other thing is, I don't think this is the stock gun that actually comes with the unit. I think it comes with like a cheap valve with a tip on it. So this thing is definitely an improvement over what I've seen the stock things to be, where you just have a nice heavy-duty valve, and this thing has not clogged up at all. So far so good. I mean, it's working. It does require a ton of air. I can hear my 60-gallon compressor going off. I actually have it adjusted a little higher than stock. The stock switch closes at 120 psi. I ratcheted it up to like 130, I think. So, but it still will turn itself on. But it is taking off rust, and it's working great. I probably won't recollect the material. I'll probably just sweep it into the grass. Because the material is so cheap, I don't see the need to spend all my time recollecting this stuff, and it just goes into the ground and becomes dirt. So, but I've got a bit done. I probably you couldn't see it because there's so much dust flying around, and I couldn't get all camera angles, but certainly getting into the corners and everything. I probably won't use it to get all the dust. Probably just use it in the inside ridges and on the corners, and then still use the carbonate wheels and and those type of things to get the majority of the floor spot done. But no, I'm happy with it. It gets really well inside those ridges, inside those guts. So I'm going to stick with like just spot blasting corners and hinge areas and lips and things like that are almost impossible to get with a wire wheel. And then do the wire wheel on the rest of this floor. Alright, second major problem of the day. The Deadman trigger here. You can see what it is a plastic casing, and there's a metal lump there that basically squeezes into a rubber hose inside of it. When you press on the trigger, it lets off the rubber hose and lets the material come out. But what a stupid design, because look what happens is that rubber deteriorates with that constant metal bump out pushing into it, and eventually the rubber hose splits and the material starts leaking and it no longer functions. So now I gotta go buy a new one. Junk. Okay, well, I'm back. I got one from Harbor Freight. Same build quality, same gray plastic, but as you can see, they fixed the major design flaw where instead of pushing on a opening and closing by squeezing a rubber tube, which ultimately created a rip, they use this Deadman's valve where it opens from the outside. So hopefully this will hold up. We'll see. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and install this and get moving on the floor. Okay, take my mask off. Whew, gosh, I'm just covered in dust. This is been going at it for a little period of time. You can see I got quite a bit done. I've been alternating between the the grinder with the polycarb disc on it, which is pretty much toast. I've just been doing that to give the compressor a break. What I've been finding is this doesn't use a whole lot of material. I'm actually surprised. I bought 4 more bags at Menards, and I probably only use about a little over 50 pounds so far, because that's all I had to begin with was a bag and maybe a bag and a half, and I don't think I finished that. So it's using less material than I thought, but more air. The compressor is going a lot when I'm using it, and so I would say I wouldn't even bother if you don't have a 60-pound or 60-gallon or more compressor, unless you're doing some small stuff. Definitely better than the spot blasting gun in that, you know, I could put 40 pounds of material in that hopper and just go for a while, you know, until really I feel like the compressors needs a break. So, but you can see I got a lot of that. This part here that's already brown, this was done by the mobile sandblasting guy, and so that's why it has that brown color, because it's already flash rusted, but it's already pretty much done. I'll go over some spots where he missed. I didn't have him do this. Yeah, I just had him do this real quick because he had a few minutes left, but he did get a lot of rust off there, so all I have to do is just lightly go over that. I'm also not getting near that hole because I ordered some new sheet metal, some flooring from Bus Depot. I forget what it is, a 19 by 40 inch piece, so should definitely cover that easily, and that as well. So I'll be cutting those sections out, so I'm not going to worry about that because that's like where the camper, I think it's the camper stove gas and water outlet fittings, which I'm not going to obviously have. Again, this is a project. If I just had wire wheels and discs and was grinding it or using a drill or whatever, this would probably be days of work. But with the Sandblaster, it's hours. You know, I've only been out here for another couple hours. I mainly had to spend time buying new stuff. Obviously, there's the new nozzle. I recommend, when I was at Harbor Freight, by the way, and I was looking at the new version of this unit. This one's probably a few years old, really, because I can tell the sticker's kind of old. The new version looks relatively the same. They have, obviously, the inline dryer. I like this arrangement here. It's with my, replacement. But the real thing was, they got rid of, I believe that other Deadman valve was the one that came with this, and what they probably discovered was they were garbage, which I clearly showed. This one is decent. It's working. It's closing off. It leaks a little bit, but it does have replaceable tips that came with 2 of them, 2 extras. So it's okay. I also replaced the hose clamp and put a big beefy hose clamp on that. But the ones that come on the new ones are just literally just one of these it's literally just one of these with a tip on it. And so you'd have to use both hands to actuate it back and forth. I think that's unnecessary to have when you're using this thing. So I guess if you buy one of these, I think new, they're $119, I believe, for the 40 gallon. I would add $20 and get that for sure right off the bat. Now that all the blasting and sanding is done, I'm moving the car back into the garage and to get ready for the prep and paint. I'm going to first start with wiping all the surfaces down with acetone in a rag. So just wiping every single surface I'm about to paint down really well. And I'll then get ready for the POR-15. And finally, we're on to the POR-15. Notice that I'm dipping it right into the can, the paintbrush. I do not recommend doing that. I've used the can before, so I was pretty confident I was going to use the rest of it up. But normally you would want to pour it into another container so you don't contaminate the actual paint that's in the can. I am using a brush. I plan on using a spray gun when I do the bottom, the undercarriage of the car, just because there's so many nooks and crannies and tubes and all that stuff. To do a sprayer, you do need a special, I guess, thinner that comes, thinner that comes with the POR-15 product, which I believe I do have some of that. I bought it at the paint store. But for this, I don't care. It's just, like I said, again, it's a work truck. If you're wondering why I'm just brush painting black POR-15 on the whole interior, it's because it's going to be a work truck. I may go back over it with a seal coat or paint. Again, you can go over POR-15 with paint, but I think it requires another primer that you need to put on top of that, I believe. I'm not sure about that. I'll let you know in a future video when I do the undercarriage. But, this is a pretty easy process. I don't think I have to explain it too much. Just basically paint it on and let it dry. All right, well, that's it. I had to do it in a hurry, so it needs to be retouched in a few places. There's little spots that I missed. But looks pretty good. At least that'll keep any more rust from happening. The reason I was in a hurry was because I had to run out and go on a little bit of road trip. I needed to pick this guy up here. I was missing the transmission in the bus, so found someone who had one. It looks kind of rough, but it does turn, so hopefully I clean it up and it works. But I got it for the price of less than what it would cost for a rebuild core, so even if it's not good, the price I paid for it's worth it for the rebuild core anyway. So anyway, that is it for this video of the VW bus restoration part 2, and we'll see you on the next part.